In the misty autumn of 1933, the rolling hills of Sussex concealed Blackwood Manor like a secret whispered among ancient oaks. The estate, with its ivy-clad towers and shadowed gardens, exuded an air of faded grandeur, as if time itself had paused to mourn. Hercule Poirot, the renowned Belgian detective, adjusted his immaculate mustache as his taxi crunched along the gravel drive. He had received an urgent telegram from Sir Reginald Blackwood, a reclusive industrialist, hinting at familial discord and impending peril. Chapter 1. The Invitation to Blackwood Manor. The year was 1933, and the autumn winds whispered through the English countryside like conspirators plotting in the shadows. Sussex, with its undulating hills and ancient woodlands, seemed a world apart from the bustling streets of London where Hercule Poirot had made his home. The little Belgian detective, renowned for his impeccable mustache and even more impeccable mind, sat in his neatly appointed apartment on Whitehaven Mansions, sipping a tisane of chamomile to soothe his nerves after a particularly vexing case involving a stolen sapphire necklace. The room was a testament to order. Polished silverware gleamed on the sideboard, books aligned precisely on shelves, and not a speck of dust dared to settle on the Persian rug. It was on this crisp October morning that the telegram arrived. Delivered by a breathless messenger boy, it bore the insignia of the Royal Mail and was addressed in a hurried scrawl. Poirot, ever meticulous, adjusted his pince-nez before slicing open the envelope with a silver letter opener. The message within was brief but urgent. Monsieur Poirot, stop urgent assistance required at Blackwood Manor, Sussex. Stop familial discord and impending peril. Stop arrive soonest. Stop Sir Reginald Blackwood. Poirot's grey cells, those remarkable instruments of deduction, stirred immediately. Sir Reginald Blackwood, a name he recalled from the society pages. An industrialist of considerable wealth amassed through steel mills and shipping ventures during the Great War. Reclusive in recent years, rumors swirled of family estrangements and business rivalries. Impending peril, Poirot murmured to himself, twirling the end of his mustache. What shadows lurk in this manor, I wonder? Without delay, he summoned his faithful valet, George, to pack his valise. We depart for Sussex at once, mon ami. Prepare my traveling suit, the grey one with the subtle pinstripe. And do not forget the mustache wax. George, unflappable as ever, nodded and set about the task with efficiency. The train journey from Victoria Station was uneventful, save for the rhythmic clatter of wheels on tracks that lulled Poirot into contemplation. He gazed out at the passing landscape. Fields golden with harvest remnants, villages nestled in valleys, and the occasional stately home peeking through the foliage. Blackwood Manor, he had learned from a quick perusal of his address book, was an Elizabethan pile dating back to the 16th century, expanded in the Victorian era with Gothic flourishes. It stood on 100 acres of prime land, complete with formal gardens, a lake, and rumors of hidden passages from smuggling days. As the train neared the station, Poirot's mind raced through possibilities. Familial discord often meant inheritance disputes, jealousies, or long-buried secrets. Peril could imply threats, perhaps even attempts on life. Ah, but Poirot does not speculate without facts, he chided himself. The little grey cells must wait for the evidence. A taxi awaited at the rural station, arranged no doubt by Sir Reginald. The driver, a weathered local with a pipe clenched between his teeth, tipped his cap. Blackwood Manor, sir. Aye, 'tis a grand old place, but folks say it's cursed. Been deaths there, unnatural-like. Poirot raised an eyebrow. Cursed? Mon Dieu, superstition is the enemy of reason. Tell me more, if you please. As they wound along narrow lanes hedged with blackberry brambles, the driver spun tales. A Blackwood ancestor hanged for treason, a lady of the house who vanished in the 1800s, and more recently whispers of Sir Reginald's ill health and family squabbles. The son's a gambler, they say. Daughter-in-law. Wait, no, it's a niece. Sharp as a tack but cut from the will. And that business partner, Harrington, slimy as an eel. Poirot listened intently, filing away each morsel. Gossip, while unreliable, often held kernels of truth. The gravel drive crunched under the tires as they approached the manor. It loomed before them, a symphony of stone and ivy. Tall chimneys piercing the sky, mullioned windows reflecting the waning sun, and gargoyles leering from the eaves. The air carried the scent of damp earth and wood smoke, mingling with the faint brine from the distant sea. Poirot alighted, paid the driver handsomely, and straightened his coat. Merci. Your story shall prove useful, perhaps. The massive oak door swung open before he could knock, revealing Mr. Edmund Graves, the butler. Tall and gaunt, with a face like carved marble, Graves bowed slightly. Monsieur Poirot, Sir Reginald awaits you in the drawing-room. Allow me to take your coat. His voice was polished, betraying no emotion, but Poirot noted the subtle tremor in his hands. Nerves or something more. The hall was cavernous, paneled in dark oak that absorbed the light from sconces. Portraits of stern Blackwoods glared down, their eyes following as Poirot passed. A grand staircase curved upward, flanked by suits of armor that seemed ready to spring to life. Graves led him to the drawing-room, where a fire crackled in a massive hearth, casting flickering shadows on velvet drapes and antique furniture. Sir Reginald Blackwood rose from a wing-back chair, his frame sturdy despite the lines of worry etching his face. In his early 60s, with silver hair and a neatly trimmed beard, he exuded the authority of a man accustomed to command. Monsieur Poirot, thank heavens you've come. Your reputation precedes you. The affair of the blue train, the chocolate box mystery. Brilliant work. He extended a hand, firm but clammy. Poirot inclined his head. It is my pleasure, Sir Reginald. But pray tell me of this peril. Poirot is at your service. They settled into chairs, Graves pouring sherry from a crystal decanter. Sir Reginald leaned forward, voice lowering. It's my family, Poirot. Tensions have been building for months. My wife, Lady Amelia, she's distant, secretive. My son Arthur squanders his allowance at the casinos, drowning in debts. Then there's my niece, Eliza Thorne, who arrived unannounced 6 months ago claiming a share of the estate. And my business partner, Victor Harrington. He's been pressing for changes in our agreements, ones that favor him unduly. Poirot sipped his sherry, noting its fine vintage. And you fear what, precisely? Threats? Attempts? Sir Reginald glanced at the door as if expecting eavesdroppers. Subtle things at first, misplaced documents, whispers in the night. Then last week my horse bolted during a ride. The saddle girth cut, and yesterday a letter, anonymous, warning me to settle affairs or face the consequences. I suspect one of them, but which? I need your gray cells to uncover the truth before it's too late. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Ah, the anonymous letter. A classic device. May I see it? Sir Reginald produced it from his pocket, cheap paper, block letters cut from newspapers. You have been warned. The estate will claim its due. Crude, but effective. As they discussed further, the door opened, admitting Lady Amelia Blackwood. Elegant in a silk gown the color of midnight, her auburn hair pinned in a chignon, she carried herself with poise. But Poirot detected strain in her smile. Reginald, you didn't mention a guest. Her voice was melodic with a hint of frost. My dear, this is Hercule Poirot, the detective. I've invited him to advise on some matters. Sir Reginald's tone was evasive. Lady Amelia's eyes narrowed briefly. A detective? How intriguing. I hope it's nothing serious. She extended a gloved hand, which Poirot kissed gallantly. Enchanted, madame. Your home is most impressive. She nodded, excusing herself to oversee dinner preparations. Soon after, Arthur Blackwood entered, a young man of 30 with disheveled hair and a rumpled suit. "Father, who's this?" His eyes were bloodshot, perhaps from lack of sleep or excess of vice. "Arthur, meet Monsieur Poirot. He's here on business." Sir Reginald's jaw tightened. Arthur snorted. "Business? Or spying on us? Well, if it's about my debts, I'll handle them." He poured himself a generous brandy, sloshing it slightly. Poirot observed the interplay. Resentment simmered beneath the surface. Eliza Thorne arrived next, a striking woman in her mid-20s with sharp features and intelligent eyes. "Uncle, the post has come. Nothing urgent." She glanced at Poirot curiously. "Oh, visitor?" Introductions followed, with Eliza's handshake firm and appraising. Finally, Victor Harrington appeared, a sleek man with oiled hair and a predatory smile. "Reginald, old chap. And who's this dapper fellow?" As the group assembled, Poirot catalogued impressions. Lady Amelia's fidgeting with a locket, Arthur's evasive glances, Eliza's probing questions, Harrington's forced bonhomie, and Graves' silent vigilance from the shadows. Dinner was announced, and they moved to the dining room, a chamber of polished mahogany and candlelight. Crystal glasses tinkled, silverware gleamed, and the aroma of roast pheasant filled the air. Conversation flowed superficially. The weather, London society, the state of the economy post-crash. But undercurrents tugged. Arthur's barbed remarks about family fortunes, Eliza's pointed inquiries into business dealings, Harrington's sly allusions to new opportunities. Poirot, seated at Sir Reginald's right, interjected occasionally with charming anecdotes, all while observing. A dropped fork by Lady Amelia, quickly retrieved by Graves, a heated whisper between Arthur and Harrington. Eliza's watchful gaze on her uncle's glass. As the meal progressed to dessert, a rich plum pudding, thunder rumbled outside, heralding a storm. The windows rattled and the lights flickered briefly. Sir Reginald raised his glass. "To family and friends, may we weather all storms." The toast was echoed, but Poirot noted the irony. As coffee was served, he excused himself briefly, wandering the hall under pretense of admiring the art. In a alcove, he found a family photograph, the Blackwoods in happier times, but even there tensions lurked in stiff postures. Returning, he caught snippets. Lady Amelia mentioning a headache, Arthur planning a late walk. The evening wound down, guests retiring one by one. Sir Reginald pulled Poirot aside. "Stay vigilant, my friend. I feel the net closing." Poirot nodded. "Fear not, Sir Reginald. Hercule Poirot shall unravel this web." In his guest room, adorned with heavy brocade and a four-poster bed, Poirot prepared for bed. But sleep eluded him. The storm raged, lightning illuminating the grounds. He paced, reviewing the day's clues, the telegram's urgency, the butler's tremor, the anonymous letter's threat. Then, as the clock struck midnight, a piercing scream shattered the silence, echoing through the manor like a harbinger of doom. Poirot sprang to action, robe hastily donned, hurrying toward the source, the study. What he found there would set the stage for a mystery as intricate as any he had faced. Chapter 2. The Body in the Study. The scream pierced the stormy night like a dagger through silk, reverberating through the labyrinthine corridors of Blackwood Manor. It originated from the east wing, where Sir Reginald's private study lay secluded behind heavy oak doors. Hercule Poirot, roused from his restless pacing in the guest room, moved with surprising agility for a man of his stature. His patent leather shoes whispered against the polished floors as he navigated the dimly lit hallways, guided by the flickering gas lamps that cast elongated shadows on the wallpapered walls. The storm outside raged on, rain lashing against the mullioned windows, thunder providing a dramatic underscore to the unfolding horror. Poirot reached the study door first, his hand steady as he turned the brass knob. The room was a sanctum of masculine opulence, walls lined with leather-bound volumes on history and industry, a massive globe in one corner, and a mahogany desk dominating the center like a throne. But the scene before him was one of tragedy. Sir Reginald Blackwood lay slumped over that very desk, his head resting on a blotter stained with ink and now, ominously, a spilled glass of brandy. The amber liquid pooled around scattered papers, and a faint froth clung to the corners of his mouth. His eyes, once sharp with the cunning of a tycoon, stared blankly into eternity, wide with what could only be described as shock, or perhaps accusation. The acrid scent hit Poirot immediately, a bitter almond tang that bespoke cyanide. Mon Dieu, he murmured, his mustache twitching as his gray cells sprang into action. This was no natural death, no apoplexy from the evening's tensions. This was murder, deliberate and cold. Behind him, the household converged in a flurry of nightgowns and dressing robes. Lady Amelia was the source of the scream. She staggered in, her face ashen beneath her powder, collapsing into a nearby armchair with a gasp. Reginald! Oh God, no. He was fine at dinner, perfectly fine. Her sobs were theatrical, yet Poirot noted the way her hands clutched the armrests, knuckles white. Was it grief, or the strain of performance? Arthur Blackwood burst in next, his hair tousled as if from a fitful sleep, or perhaps a clandestine activity. He paced the room like a caged animal, his eyes darting from his father's body to the assembled group. Father. This can't be. The will, he was changing it just yesterday. Who would... His voice trailed off, laced with a mix of sorrow and something sharper, perhaps relief. Debts, Poirot recalled from dinner chatter, hung over the young man like a noose. Eliza Thorne followed, her nightdress modest but her expression alert, clutching a string of pearls as if they were a talisman. Her eyes scanned the room suspiciously, lingering on each face before settling on the body. Uncle, poisoned? It must be. Look at his lips. She spoke with a clinical detachment that belied her youth, her gaze flicking to the open window where curtains billowed in the wind. Mr. Edmund Graves, the butler, entered with composed dignity, though his usually impassive face showed cracks. A slight pallor, a bead of sweat on his brow. He stood rigidly by the door, hands clasped behind his back. Sir Reginald, I heard the scream. Shall I summon the authorities? His voice was steady, but Poirot detected a subtle quiver. Last came Victor Harrington, the business partner, rubbing sleep from his eyes but muttering under his breath about ruined deals and untimely disruptions. He hovered near the desk, peering at the papers as if assessing salvageable assets even in death. Poirot took command with quiet authority. Monsieur and Mesdames, remain calm. This is indeed murder, cyanide by the smell and symptoms. Touch nothing. No one leaves the estate until the police arrive. He knelt by the body, careful not to disturb the scene, noting the glass's position, tipped over as if in a final convulsion. The desk held clues. A fountain pen uncapped, a half-written letter smeared, and in the grate of the fireplace a partially burned document, its edges charred but fragments visible. An open window caught his eye, unlatched, allowing the storm's chill to invade. And there, on the Persian rug, a peculiar mud print, fresh and tracked in from outside, perhaps. Interesting, Poirot mused aloud. The window, an entry point or exit. Lady Amelia's sobs subsided into hiccups. Who could have done this? He had enemies in business, but here, in our home? Arthur stopped pacing, his face pale. Enemies, or closer? Father argued with Harrington earlier. I heard raised voices. Harrington bristled. Nonsense. A minor disagreement over shares. Nothing worth this, Eliza interjected sharply. And you, Arthur? You are out for a late walk in this weather? Mud on your shoes, perhaps? Arthur flushed. I needed air. The storm hadn't fully broken yet. Graves cleared his throat. I served Sir Reginald his brandy after dinner from the decanter in the drawing room. He retired here to work. Poirot nodded, filing away the detail. The decanter, accessible to all. A distant siren wailed, growing nearer. Graves had telephoned the local constabulary. Soon Inspector Japp of Scotland Yard arrived, summoned perhaps by prior arrangement or sheer coincidence, though Poirot suspected the former given Sir Reginald's prominence. Japp, a burly man with a no-nonsense mustache rivaling Poirot's own, grumbled as he entered, shaking rain from his coat. Poirot? Here? Another one of your puzzles, eh? What's the story? Poirot briefed him succinctly. The scream, the body, the poison. Japp surveyed the room, his eyes sharp. Right, seal the estate. Alibis, everyone. As the night deepened, whispers of those alibis began to surface in the adjoining parlor, where the group was herded under a constable's watch. Lady Amelia claimed a debilitating headache, retiring early to her room with a sleeping draught. I heard nothing until the scream, she insisted, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief. Arthur reiterated his late walk in the gardens, to clear my head after Father's lecture on finances. Eliza had been reading in the library, alone. Harrington professed to be in his guest room, reviewing ledgers. Graves had been in the servants' quarters polishing silver. Poirot twirled his moustache, sensing discrepancies. The mud print. Did it match Arthur's boots? The burned letter? What secrets did it hold? And the open window, a red herring or a genuine clue? Something did not align. The pieces of this puzzle were scattered, but Poirot's ordered mind would soon begin to assemble them. As lightning illuminated the study once more, casting eerie glows on the lifeless form, Poirot whispered to Japp, "This is but the beginning, mon ami. The killer is clever, but Hercule Poirot is more so." The storm outside mirrored the turmoil within, and the night promised revelations yet to come. Chapter 3. Interrogations begin. The first light of dawn filtered through the heavy drapes of Blackwood Manor, casting elongated shadows that danced like specters across the ornate rugs and polished woodwork. The storm had subsided into a drizzling mist, leaving the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and lingering tension. Hercule Poirot, ever the early riser, had already donned his impeccable suit, a charcoal gray ensemble with a silk tie, and was pacing the drawing room with the precision of a metronome. Inspector Japp, nursing a cup of strong tea provided by a subdued Graves, rubbed his temples wearily. Another all-nighter, Poirot. These country house murders, always the same. Locked rooms, alibis, and a house full of suspects with motives as thick as pea soup. Poirot inclined his head, his mustache perfectly waxed despite the hour. Ah, but each puzzle is unique, mon ami. The little gray cells thrive on such challenges. We must proceed with the interrogations, systematically, logically. Begin with the family, then the outsiders. Order is the key to unraveling chaos. The drawing room, with its velvet curtains muffling the outside world and a roaring fire in the grate to ward off the chill, served as their makeshift headquarters. Portraits of stern Blackwood ancestors gazed down judgmentally, as if privy to the secrets below. Japp nodded, summoning the suspects one by one via a constable stationed at the door. The household, deprived of sleep, shuffled in with varying degrees of composure, their night attire hastily replaced by day clothes that bore the wrinkles of haste. First came Lady Amelia Blackwood, her elegance somewhat diminished by puffy eyes and a pallid complexion. She seated herself gracefully on a chaise longue, folding her hands in her lap with deliberate poise. Poirot observed her closely. the subtle fidgeting with a gold locket around her neck, the way her gaze flickered toward the window as if seeking escape. "Madame," he began in his soft, accented voice, "tell us of your husband. What was the nature of your marriage? Any discords?" Lady Amelia's lips tightened. "Reginald was a good provider, Monsieur Poirot. But he was tyrannical, controlling every aspect of our lives from the household accounts to my social engagements. He even dictated my wardrobe." She paused, her voice dropping. "Lately he grew paranoid, accusing me of indiscretions. But I assure you I was faithful." Jap interjected gruffly. "And your alibi? You mentioned a headache." "Yes," she replied, touching her temple. "I retired early around 10, took a powder and slept until the scream, my own, upon discovering him." Poirot leaned forward. "This locket, madam, what does it contain?" She hesitated, then opened it to reveal a miniature photograph of a handsome man, not Sir Reginald. "My brother, deceased these 5 years, a memento." Her eyes welled with tears, but Poirot noted the calculated pause. Genuine grief, or a performance? As she was dismissed, Arthur Blackwood entered, slouching into a chair with the air of a man burdened by more than sorrow. His shirt was untucked, his hair unkempt, and the scent of stale tobacco clung to him. "This is absurd," he muttered. "Questioning us like criminals." Jap fixed him with a stern gaze. "Your father was murdered, lad. Everyone's a suspect until proven otherwise. Now your debts. We know about them. Casinos, horses. How much do you owe?" Arthur flushed, shifting uncomfortably. "Thousands. 10, perhaps 15. Father threatened to cut me off entirely, said I was a disgrace." Poirot's eyes sharpened. "And last night, your late walk in the storm?" Arthur shrugged. "Needed to think. The gardens clear my head. I was back before midnight, heard nothing unusual." Jap pressed. "Witnesses?" "None," Arthur admitted. "But I swear I couldn't harm him." Poirot noted a tremor in his voice. Fear or guilt? A potential red herring emerged. Arthur's muddy boots spotted in the hall, matching the print in the study. But was it too obvious? Next was Eliza Thorne, the niece, who strode in with a defiant chin and eyes like polished steel. She perched on the edge of a chair, her posture rigid. "Uncle was changing the will, wasn't he?" she said preemptively. "Cutting me out after I refused that ridiculous arranged marriage he proposed, to some doddering lord for alliances." Jap raised an eyebrow. "Motive enough for some?" Eliza laughed bitterly. "Poison? Too cowardly. If I wanted him gone, I'd have confronted him directly." Poirot inquired gently. "Your whereabouts last evening?" "Library, reading botany texts, alone." She mentioned overhearing a heated argument between Sir Reginald and Harrington earlier in the evening. Voices raised about embezzlement and betrayal. Harrington himself followed, slick as ever in a tailored suit, though dark circles betrayed his unease. He sat with crossed legs, exuding false confidence. "This is preposterous. Reginald and I were partners for decades. Yes, we quarreled over share distributions. He accused me of skimming profits, but it was paranoia, nothing more." Jap leaned in. "Proof?" Harrington produced a sheaf of papers from his pocket. "Ledgers, Inspector. All above board." Poirot examined them briefly, noting discrepancies in the margins, subtle but present. "And your alibi?" "In my room, reviewing these very documents until the commotion." A false clue surfaced. A dropped handkerchief in the study monogrammed with Harrington's initials, but was it planted? Finally, Mr. Edmund Graves, the butler, entered with the stoicism of long service. His uniform was immaculate, but his hands trembled faintly as he clasped them. "I've served the Blackwoods for 30 years, sirs. Loyal through thick and thin." Japp nodded. You served the brandy from the decanter? Yes, Inspector, poured it myself after dinner. Sir Reginald liked a nightcap in his study. Poirot's gaze was piercing. Any enemies among the staff? Or personal grievances? Graves shook his head. None, though I did notice Lady Amelia lingering near the decanter earlier. His voice held a hint of reluctance. As Graves departed, Poirot and Japp conferred in low tones. Everyone has motive and opportunity, Japp grumbled. Lady Amelia's control issues, Arthur's debts, Eliza's inheritance snub, Harrington's business woes, even the butler's loyalty could be a facade. Poirot twirled his mustache. We but observed the inconsistencies, the locket's photo, innocent, yet she hesitated. Arthur's boots, too convenient. Eliza's eavesdropping, selective. Harrington's ledgers, falsified. And Graves' tremor, nerves or knowledge. A constable interrupted with a find. A woman's glove near the study door, embroidered with Eliza's initials. Planted? Japp wondered. Poirot smiled enigmatically. Perhaps a red herring, mon ami. The killer seeks to mislead, but Poirot sees through the fog. As the morning wore on, the interrogations revealed layers of deceit, whispered affairs, hidden letters, and simmering resentments. The manor, once a bastion of grandeur, now felt like a pressure cooker of secrets. Poirot stepped to the window, gazing at the misty grounds. The plot thickened, clues accumulating like autumn leaves. But one thing was certain. The killer's web was intricate, yet destined to unravel under the scrutiny of his gray cells. A sudden revelation beckoned from the library shelves. Chapter 4. The Hidden Letter. With the interrogations concluded for the moment, Hercule Poirot sought solace in the vast library of Blackwood Manor, a room that seemed to hold the accumulated wisdom and perhaps the buried sins of generations. The air was thick with the musty aroma of aged leather and yellowed pages, the shelves towering like silent sentinels guarding secrets. Dust motes danced in the slanting rays of morning light that pierced the tall, arched windows, illuminating spines of forgotten tomes on subjects ranging from ancient heraldry to modern metallurgy. Poirot, his compact form dwarfed by the grandeur, settled into a high-backed leather chair near the fireplace, where embers from the night's blaze still glowed faintly. Before him on a low table lay the fragments of the burned letter, salvaged from the study grate by Inspector Japp's careful hands. Charred edges crumbled at the touch, but Poirot's delicate fingers, gloved in white cotton to preserve evidence, pieced them together like a jigsaw puzzle of deceit. The handwriting was Sir Reginald's own, bold and angular, befitting a man of industry. As the words emerged from the ashes, a narrative of betrayal unfolded. The betrayal stings deepest from those closest. Harrington's ledgers showed discrepancies, embezzlement on a grand scale, must confront before it's too late. Poirot's mustache quivered with satisfaction. Ah, voilà, a clue that points directly to the business partner. But is it the truth, or a misdirection planted by the killer? He leaned back, his gray cells whirring like the gears of a fine Swiss watch. Harrington's denial during interrogation had been vehement, his produced ledgers seemingly impeccable. Yet those marginal notes, subtle alterations, perhaps forged. Poirot made a mental note to have Japp subpoena the original company records. But for now, the letter suggested motive. If Sir Reginald had discovered financial malfeasance, Harrington stood to lose everything. Reputation, fortune, perhaps even liberty. The drizzle outside had ceased, leaving the gardens glistening under a watery sun. Poirot, ever thorough, decided to verify the mud print from the study. Donning a borrowed overcoat and galoshes, much to his distaste as they marred his sartorial elegance, he ventured outdoors. The paths wound through manicured hedges and flower beds now sodden and forlorn, the air crisp with the scent of wet soil and decaying leaves. He followed a gravel trail to a secluded bench overlooking the lake, a spot Graves had mentioned as Arthur's favorite for contemplation, or as rumor had it, clandestine meetings with creditors. There, in the soft earth beside the bench, Poirot found identical mud, a rich loam mixed with gravel matching the print on the study rug. Kneeling carefully to avoid soiling his trousers, he examined it closely. Fresh tracks, perhaps from the previous night. Rising, he returned to the manor and summoned Arthur to the conservatory, a glass-enclosed haven of exotic plants that provided a neutral ground for confrontation. Arthur arrived, his face drawn and eyes shadowed by lack of sleep. "Monsieur Poirot, more questions. I've told you everything." His tone was defensive, hands shoved deep into his pockets. Poirot gestured to a wicker chair. "Sit, monsieur. Tell me again of your late walk. The gardens, oui? Near the bench by the lake?" Arthur nodded warily. "Yes, to think. Father's words at dinner stung. About my debts, my future." Poirot's eyes bored into him. "And the mud on your boots? It matches the print in the study. You were there, perhaps entering through the window?" Arthur stammered, color draining from his face. I was near the bench, yes, but only to clear my head. I didn't go to the study. Someone must have used my path to frame me." A red herring, Poirot pondered, or the fumbling excuse of a guilty man. Arthur's debts provided ample motive, but his alibi, though witnessless, held a ring of desperation rather than deceit. As Arthur departed, visibly shaken, Lady Amelia entered unbidden, her silk shawl draped elegantly over her shoulders. She had overheard the summons, her curiosity or anxiety drawing her. "Monsieur Poirot, may I speak? Reginald, he discovered something recently, my indiscretion." Her voice trembled, and she toyed with the locket once more. Poirot ushered her to a seat amid the ferns. "Indiscretion, madam. Elaborate, if you please." She sighed deeply. "Years ago, before our marriage soured, I had a brief liaison with a man from Reginald's circle, a colleague, now deceased. Reginald found old letters last month. He was furious, threatened divorce, ruin." Poirot's mind raced. The locket's photograph, not her brother, as she had claimed, but this lover? And this man, his name? Captain Harold Winters, died in a hunting accident 5 years past. Poirot noted the detail. An accident or convenient elimination? But Lady Amelia's confession added layers. Jealousy as motive, perhaps even for her. The afternoon brought more revelations. Jap, with a search warrant hastily procured from the local magistrate, led a thorough combing of the premises. In Graves' modest quarters above the stables, a Spartan room with a single bed, wardrobe, and writing desk, they discovered a small glass vial tucked behind a loose floorboard. Empty, but residue clung to its interior, a crystalline powder that, upon Jap's field test, reacted positively for cyanide. Graves was summoned forthwith, his composure cracking like fine china under strain. "Planted, monsieur. I swear it. I've served this family faithfully for decades, through wars, scandals, everything." His voice rose in indignation, hands gesturing wildly. Poirot observed the butler's eyes, fear, yes, but also outrage. "Genuine?" Eliza, informed of the find, burst into the room, her face flushed with accusation. "You, the loyal servant, always lurking, listening. You poured the brandy, you had access. And that old affair with Aunt Amelia, don't deny it, I found diary entries." Graves paled. "Miss Eliza, that was long ago, before her marriage. Over and done." But Eliza's eyes blazed. Motive enough, resentment, perhaps blackmail gone wrong. Poirot intervened calmly. "Enough, mademoiselle. Accusations without proof are but wind." Yet the vial was damning, a clue that shifted suspicion to the butler. Was it too convenient, another planted red herring to divert from the true culprit? As rain resumed its assault on the windows, drumming a relentless tattoo, Poirot retreated to ponder the web of motives. Lady Amelia's affair, Arthur's debts, Eliza's inheritance grudge, Harrington's embezzlement, Graves' hidden vial. Everyone had opportunity during the post-dinner hours. The decanter, accessible in the drawing room, the open window, a potential entry, the mud shared by the gardens. Logic demanded order, a sequence of events that fit without contradiction. But as he mulled, a sudden noise from above, a faint creak like footsteps in the attic, hinted at more secrets concealed in the manor's upper reaches. Poirot's eyes gleamed. The puzzle deepens. What hides in the shadows overhead? With Jap in tow, he ascended the narrow stairs, the air growing colder and dustier with each step. Chapter 5. The Attic Secret. The narrow staircase to the attic creaked underfoot like the bones of an old skeleton protesting disturbance. Hercule Poirot, with Inspector Jap trailing reluctantly behind, ascended into the upper reaches of Blackwood Manor, where the air grew thick with dust and the faint, musty odor of forgotten memories. Cobwebs draped the rafters like tattered veils, and the dim light from a single dormer window filtered through grimy panes, casting elongated shadows across the cluttered space. Trunks and crates, shrouded in yellowed sheets, stood sentinel amid discarded furniture. A broken rocking horse, a tarnished mirror reflecting distorted images, and stacks of mildewed books that whispered of bygone eras. Poirot, undeterred by the disarray, moved with purposeful grace, his gloved hands lifting covers and prying open lids. "Ah, mon ami," he said to Jap, who sneezed violently from the swirling dust. "The attic is the repository of secrets. Families bury their pasts here, but the truth, it has a way of resurfacing." Jap muttered something about damned allergies and wasting time, but followed suit, rummaging through a nearby chest. It was Poirot who struck gold, or rather a leather-bound diary, its cover embossed with Sir Reginald's initials in faded gold leaf. Tucked within a trunk filled with family relics, yellowed christening gowns, tarnished silver spoons, and bundles of faded correspondence. The diary appeared well-worn, its pages filled with the industrialist's precise script. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he flipped through the entries, the paper crackling softly. "Listen to this, Inspector. Suspicions confirmed, Harrington's accounts doctored, embezzlement to the tune of thousands, confrontation imminent. And here, Amelia's deception wounds deepest, the affair with Graves, our own butler. Years ago, but the betrayal lingers." Jap whistled low. "Blimey, Poirot, an affair between Lady Amelia and the butler? That explains Graves's tremor. Guilt or fear of exposure?" Poirot nodded thoughtfully. "Oui, and motive aplenty. Jealousy from Sir Reginald, revenge perhaps from Graves if threatened with dismissal, or even from Lady Amelia if her secret was to be revealed." The diary painted a picture of a household rife with undercurrents. Sir Reginald's growing paranoia, entries detailing Arthur's gambling excesses, Eliza's insolent demands for inheritance, and Harrington's slippery maneuvers in business dealings. Descending with the diary in hand, Poirot wasted no time in confronting Graves. Stumnall Butler was found in the pantry, polishing silver with mechanical precision, his face a mask of stoic reserve. Summoned to the drawing room, he stood rigidly before Poirot and Jap, his hands clasped as if in prayer. "Monsieur Graves," Poirot began gently, holding up the diary. "This details an affair between you and Lady Amelia. Years ago, but Sir Reginald discovered it recently. Tell us the truth." Graves' composure faltered. His shoulders sagged, and he averted his eyes. "It was long before her marriage to Sir Reginald, monsieur. A youthful indiscretion. We were both in service then at another estate. It ended amicably when she wed. I came to Blackwood Manor later by chance. No lingering feelings, I assure you. Jap pressed. But if he found out, threatened your position? Graves shook his head vehemently. He confronted me privately last week. I denied nothing, but assured him it was past. He seemed resigned. No grudge held. Poirot observed the butler's earnest gaze. Truth, perhaps, but the vial in his room still loomed as damning evidence. As Graves was dismissed, a soft rustle from behind a curtain revealed Eliza Thorne, her face flushed with the embarrassment of an eavesdropper caught. I couldn't help overhearing, she admitted, stepping forward with defiant poise. The diary, Uncle's suspicions. I forged a letter to him, imitating Harrington's handwriting, sent it anonymously, hinting at more embezzlement. Jap's eyes widened. Why on earth? Eliza's chin lifted. To sow discord, force Uncle to investigate Harrington properly. I suspected the thefts myself, overheard snippets, but murder. No, that wasn't my intent. Poirot's mustache twitched. A clever red herring, mademoiselle, but one that muddies the waters. Why not confront directly? She hesitated. Fear. Uncle was volatile. Better to let evidence speak. The revelations cascaded. Arthur, cornered in the billiard room where he nursed a brandy, admitted under Poirot's relentless questioning to pawning family jewels, a sapphire brooch and gold cufflinks to cover gambling debts. Father discovered it that very night, he confessed, his voice cracking, confronted me after dinner, called me a thief in our own home. I stormed out to the gardens, yes, but I returned later through the side door, not to kill him, though, to apologize. The mud print? From his shoes, he conceded, but swore he never entered the study. Someone must have borrowed my boots. They're kept in the mudroom, accessible to all. Poirot filed this away. Another layer of misdirection, or the son's desperate lie? Harrington, summoned next, arrived sweating despite the chill, his slick demeanor fraying at the edges. Presented with the diary's accusations, he produced a stack of documents from his briefcase, original ledgers stamped and notarized. See here, gentlemen? The shares were legitimate transfers. Reginald was paranoid, seeing ghosts in every column. Age, perhaps, or stress. Jap scrutinized the papers, grunting approval, but Poirot smiled enigmatically, spotting a faint watermark discrepancy. Subtle forgery? The pieces shift, monsieur, but the puzzle remains incomplete. Your alibi holds, yet the embezzlement we shall verify. As twilight descended, draping the manor in hues of indigo and shadow, the household gathered uneasily for a subdued tea in the parlor. Poirot, feigning a need for fresh air, positioned himself near the study door, his sharp eyes vigilant. The storm's remnants had cleared, leaving a crisp evening where stars began to prick the sky. It was then he spotted it, a shadowy figure slipping from the corridor into the sealed study, the door clicking softly shut. Heart quickening, Poirot followed silently, his footsteps muffled on the rug. Who dared tamper with the crime scene? Peering through a crack in the door, he glimpsed the intruder rummaging the desk drawers. A glint of metal, a key perhaps, or something more sinister. The figure turned, face half illuminated by moonlight. Chapter 6. The Midnight Shadow. The moon hung low over Blackwood Manor like a watchful eye, its silvery light piercing the remnants of the storm clouds and casting ethereal glows through the mullioned windows. The house had settled into an uneasy hush, the earlier bustle of interrogations giving way to a palpable tension that permeated the corridors like fog rolling in from the Sussex Downs. Hercule Poirot, his mind a whirlwind of deductions, had positioned himself strategically in the shadowed alcove near the study door, his compact form blending seamlessly with the ornate woodwork. The crime scene remained sealed, yellow tape fluttering slightly in the draft, but Poirot's instincts, honed by countless mysteries, told him that the guilty party might return, drawn by the irresistible pull of unfinished business. It was well past midnight when the soft patter of footsteps echoed down the hallway, deliberate yet hushed, as if the intruder feared awakening the ghosts that surely haunted this ancient pile. Poirot held his breath, his gray cells alert as a slender figure emerged from the gloom cloaked in a dark dressing gown. The door to the study creaked open with agonizing slowness, and the shadow slipped inside. Poirot waited a beat, then followed silently, his patent leather shoes making no sound on the thick carpet. Inside, the room was bathed in moonlight, the desk still bearing the tragic remnants of Sir Reginald's final moments. The overturned glass, the scattered papers now cordoned off by Japp's constables. The figure, revealed as Lady Amelia Blackwood, rummaged frantically through the drawers, her hands trembling as she rifled through documents and trinkets. A soft gasp escaped her as she upended a hidden compartment, spilling letters onto the floor. "What do you seek, madame?" Poirot's voice, calm and accented, cut through the silence like a scalpel. Lady Amelia whirled around, her face pale as alabaster, eyes wide with shock. She clutched a sheaf of papers to her chest, but Poirot's piercing gaze made her deflate. "Monsieur Poirot, I couldn't sleep. The will, Reginald's new will. He hid it here, I know it. He was revising it, favoring Eliza over Arthur and me." Poirot stepped forward, his mustache twitching with intrigue. "Favoring Mademoiselle Thorne? And why, pray tell, does this concern you so urgently in the dead of night?" Lady Amelia sank into the desk chair, the very one where her husband had met his end, her elegance crumbling under the weight of confession. "Reginald confided in me days ago. Said Eliza's spirit reminded him of his youth, that she deserved the bulk of the estate for her independence. Arthur's debts disgusted him, and as for me, he suspected my past indiscretions. If that will surfaces, we're ruined." Her voice broke, but Poirot noted the calculated gleam in her eyes. Was this truth, or a diversion? The revelation twisted the web of suspicions anew. Eliza, beneficiary? It cast her earlier denials in a new light, her forged letter perhaps a desperate bid to accelerate inheritance. But before Poirot could probe further, a faint rustle from the doorway revealed Eliza herself, her nightgown disheveled, eyes blazing with accusation. "Aunt Amelia? What nonsense! Uncle promised me nothing. I overheard no such thing." She stepped into the room, her presence electric. "If there's a new will, it's news to me. But that glove, my glove, found near the door, who planted it? You perhaps to shift blame?" Poirot raised a hand for silence, his mind assembling fragments. "Patience, mesdames. Accusations fly like autumn leaves, but logic shall ground them." He turned his attention to the decanter on the sideboard, still half full of the fateful brandy. Donning gloves provided by Japp earlier, he examined it closely under a magnifying glass from his pocket. Fingerprints marred its crystal surface, smudges from graves, clear impressions from Sir Reginald, traces from Arthur and Harrington. But one set was deliberately obscured as if wiped with a cloth, yet not thoroughly enough. "A false clue," Poirot murmured. "The killer seeks to implicate all, yet betrays their caution." Summoning Inspector Japp from his makeshift quarters in the guest wing, where he had been snoring fitfully, Poirot shared his findings. Japp, rubbing sleep from his eyes, grumbled, "Blimey, Poirot, can't this wait till dawn?" But his interest peaked at the smudged print. "Clever bugger, eh? Will dust properly in the morning." The night deepened, but Poirot's pursuit did not wane. He confronted Victor Harrington in the library, where the man pored over ledgers by lamplight, his face etched with anxiety. Monsieur Harrington, the diary and your documents, they do not align. These watermarks, forged, non. You embezzled from Sir Reginald, siphoning funds through shell companies. Harrington's facade cracked. He slammed the book shut, sweat beading on his brow. All right, yes, a few thousand here and there to cover personal losses, but murder, I'd never. Reginald was confronting me, but we could have settled it. In a panic, Harrington bolted from the room, knocking over a vase in his haste. Jap, alerted by the crash, intercepted him in the hall, cuffing him with a satisfied grunt. Running won't help, mate. Adds to suspicion. As Harrington was secured in a locked parlor under guard, Graves approached Poirot discreetly in the corridor, his voice a whisper. Monsieur, a hint, if I may. Master argued fiercely with young Arthur hours before his death, raised voices in the study. I heard through the door. Something about disinheritance. Poirot nodded gratefully. Merci, Graves. Loyalty serves truth. Confronting Arthur in his bedroom, where the young man paced like a trapped fox, Poirot pressed relentlessly. Your father disowned you verbally that night, The argument, witnessed indirectly by Graves. Arthur collapsed onto the bed, head in hands. Yes, he called me a wastrel, said I'd get nothing. I left in rage, stormed to the gardens, but I returned later through the side door to beg forgiveness. The study door was ajar. I heard him muttering over papers, but I couldn't face him, turned away. His eyes pleaded innocence, but Poirot sensed omission. The mud print, the timing, too coincidental? Tension mounted as thunder crashed anew, a distant rumble echoing the storm within the manor. Lightning illuminated the grounds, revealing no external intruders, only the internal turmoil. Poirot, retreating to his room, sensed the killer's desperation growing like a cornered animal ready to strike. Clues accumulated, the hidden will, smudged prints, forged ledgers, heated arguments. But the true motive lurked deeper, a shadow yet to be unveiled. As the clock ticked toward dawn, a knock at his door heralded another twist. Chapter 7. Gathering Clues. The parlor of Blackwood Manor, with its heavy brocade curtains and flickering gas lamps, had become the stage for Hercule Poirot's grand orchestration of truth. As the first hints of dawn painted the sky in pale streaks of rose and gold, Poirot assembled the household in this room of faded opulence. The fire in the grate crackled merrily, a stark contrast to the somber faces gathered around. Lady Amelia, her elegance marred by fatigue, Arthur slumped in an armchair with the weight of accusation, Eliza Thorne perched alertly on a settee, Victor Harrington under guard but defiant, and Mr. Graves, standing sentinel-like near the door. Inspector Japp paced the periphery, his boots thudding softly on the Aubusson rug, while constables flanked the exits to prevent any untimely departures. Poirot stood before the mantel, his compact figure commanding attention despite his stature. He adjusted his pince-nez, twirled his mustache with deliberate flair, and cleared his throat. Mes amis, suspects if you will, Hercule Poirot has summoned you here to lay bare the threads of this tangled web. The murder of Sir Reginald Blackwood was no act of impulse, but a calculated poison administered in his brandy, laced with cyanide between dinner and midnight. Alibis have been proffered, motives unveiled, but now we sift the wheat from the chaff. The room hung on his words, the air thick with anticipation and dread. Lady Amelia dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, while Arthur fidgeted with a loose thread on his cuff. Eliza's gaze was sharp, Harrington's evasive, and Graves' impassive mask showed faint cracks. First, Poirot continued, his voice resonant with Belgian precision, the cyanide, swift, merciless. The vial found in Monsieur Graves' quarters? Damning oui, but consider easily planted as the floorboard was loose, known to the household from creaky complaints. And the residue, fresh, not aged as if stored long. A red herring dismissed. Graves exhaled audibly, his shoulders relaxing fractionally, though suspicion lingered in the other's eyes. Poirot paced slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. The mud print on the study rug, matching the garden soil near Arthur's favored bench. Monsieur Blackwood the younger admits to wandering there, his boots caked. But observe, the mudroom holds boots for all, gardeners, guests alike. Shared access and the print, too pristine, not smeared as if from a struggle. Another misdirection planted to implicate the indebted son. Arthur lifted his head, a spark of hope in his weary eyes. Then, I'm cleared? Poirot held up a finger. Not yet, monsieur. Your argument with your father, heated about disinheritance, places you near the scene. But logic probes deeper. Turning to Eliza, Poirot's eyes softened slightly. Mademoiselle Thorne, your forged letter imitating Harrington's hand. Clever to expose embezzlement. But your intent? Not murder, but to hasten justice or perhaps inheritance. The glove near the study? Yours, oui, but fibers match those from Lady Amelia's shawl, transferred perhaps innocently or deliberately. We dismiss it as circumstantial. Eliza nodded curtly, her pearls clicking softly. I've hidden nothing more. Harrington shifted uncomfortably under Japp's watchful gaze. And you, monsieur, Poirot said, pointing dramatically. The diary accuses you of embezzlement. Thousands siphoned. Your ledgers? Forged watermarks betray you. Motive? To silence Sir Reginald before exposure. But your alibi, reviewing documents in your room corroborated by a maid hearing pages turn. And the burned letter fragment? In Sir Reginald's hand, but perhaps altered post-mortem to heighten suspicion. Harrington protested vehemently. I admit the funds, bad investments I plan to repay, but poison? I'd face him man to man. Poirot nodded sagely. The true motive lies deeper, entwined in the manor's secrets. Lady Amelia interjected, her voice quavering. What of my some indiscretions? The affair with Graves long past. Reginald's jealousy. Could it drive him to despair? Poirot waved dismissively. The diary reveals the affair ended amicably, no lingering grudge. Sir Reginald noted it with regret, not rage. Another red herring, madam, though your search for the hidden will reveals desperation. Freedom from a controlling marriage. Control of the estate. Motives, yes, but evidence lacking. The group murmured, tensions easing slightly as red herrings fell away. Arthur's telegram from a creditor, time-stamped during his walk, solidified his alibi partially, outdoors but near enough. Eliza's library reading witnessed obliquely by a passing footman. Harrington's embezzlement faced charges but not murder. Graves' loyalty, tested but unbroken. Poirot paused dramatically by the window where the rising sun gilded the misty grounds. The decanter, fingerprints of all but one smudged deliberately. The open window, a feint for an external intruder, yet no footprints outside in the soft earth. The anonymous letter warning Sir Reginald, traced to cheap paper from the village post, purchased by whom? Clues converge. The poison required knowledge of his habits, mixing brandy with herbal tea for his nerves. Eliza leaned forward. The tea, from the greenhouse herbs. Belladonna grows there, but that's for eyes, not poison. Poirot's eyes twinkled. Ah, but in excess, deadly. Combined with cyanide, lethal synergy. As revelations mounted, the parlor door burst open, admitting a breathless village doctor, his coat askew from haste. Clutching a sheaf of papers, he panted, Inspector, Monsieur Poirot, the autopsy results just arrived by courier. Urgent details on the poison. The room froze, all eyes on the document. Poirot extended a hand. Merci, docteur. Let us see what science reveals. Chapter 8. The Autopsy Revelation. The parlor door swung open with a dramatic flourish, admitting Dr. Elias Hawthorne, the village physician, his overcoat dripping from a fresh drizzle that had resumed outside. His face, ruddy and bespectacled, bore the harried expression of a man summoned from his breakfast to deliver grave news. Clutching a manila envelope sealed with the coroner's wax, he panted slightly from the brisk walk up the drive. "Inspector Japp, Monsieur Poirot. Apologies for the delay. The roads are a quagmire after last night's storm, but the autopsy results are here, fresh from the laboratory in Chichester." The assembled suspects leaned forward involuntarily, the air in the room thickening with anticipation. Lady Amelia's handkerchief paused mid-dab. Arthur froze in his slouch. Eliza's sharp eyes narrowed. Harrington tugged at his collar, and Graves shifted imperceptibly. Poirot, ever the maestro, extended a gloved hand. "Merci, Dr. Hawthorne. Pray share the findings. The little gray cells await enlightenment." Dr. Hawthorne adjusted his spectacles and unsealed the envelope, withdrawing several typewritten pages adorned with clinical diagrams and chemical notations. He cleared his throat, his voice adopting the authoritative tone of medical expertise. "Sir Reginald Blackwood, aged 62, cause of death, acute cyanide poisoning. The toxin was ingested orally, likely via the brandy, as residues were found in the glass and on his lips. Time of death, approximately midnight, give or take 30 minutes based on liver temperature and rigor onset." Japp nodded gruffly. "We knew that much from the froth and smell. Anything new?" The doctor held up a finger. But here's the intrigue. Toxicology revealed not only cyanide, but traces of atropine, a derivative of belladonna, the deadly nightshade, present in sublethal amounts, but enough to exacerbate the cyanide's effects. Dilated pupils, rapid heartbeat, confusion. It synergized the poison, making it faster, more agonizing. A murmur rippled through the room. Poirot's mustache quivered with interest. "Belladonna? From where, doctor?" "Not a common additive." Hawthorne consulted his notes. "Likely from an herbal source, ingested shortly before the cyanide. Stomach contents showed remnants of tea leaves infused with the herb. Belladonna grows wild in these parts, but controlled doses are used medicinally for nerves or eye treatments." Eyes turned instinctively to the greenhouse, visible through the parlor window, a glass-domed structure nestled in the gardens, where exotic plants flourished under careful cultivation. Eliza Thorne, known among the household for her amateur botany, stiffened visibly. Poirot's gaze locked onto her. "Mademoiselle Thorne, you tend the greenhouse, no? Belladonna thrives there under your care." Eliza laughed bitterly, a sharp sound that cut through the tension like a knife. "Yes, I cultivate herbs, lavender, chamomile, even belladonna for its historical uses. Uncle occasionally requested teas for his insomnia." "But poison him? For what? A petty inheritance squabble?" Her voice rose, defiant, but Poirot noted the flicker of unease in her eyes, the way her hands clenched her skirt. Poirot paced slowly, his voice measured. "The new will, mademoiselle, hidden as Lady Amelia sought it. Favoring you perhaps for your spirit, as Sir Reginald confided. And your glove, found near the study, placed by accident or by design to return later." Eliza shook her head vehemently. "Ridiculous. I deny it. The glove was lost days ago. Anyone could have planted it. And the will? News to me. Uncle grumbled about changes, but never specifics." Graves interjected from his post by the door, his voice steady but laced with hesitation. "If I may, monsieur, I saw Master with a cup of herbal tea earlier that evening before dinner. He claimed it soothed his nerves amid the family tensions." All eyes swiveled to the butler. Japp scribbled furiously in his notebook. "Who prepared it, Graves?" The butler glanced at Lady Amelia, who paled noticeably, her composure fracturing. Lady Amelia often brewed the teas, Inspector, from the greenhouse supplies. She has a deft hand with infusions. Arthur nodded slowly, recollection dawning. Yes, Mother made the tea that afternoon, said it was a special blend for Father's stress. He drank it in the library, then later mixed his brandy as usual. Lady Amelia rose unsteadily, her voice a whisper. I did prepare it. Chamomile and valerian, nothing more. If belladonna was in it, it must have been accidental. Cross-contamination, perhaps. But Poirot's eyes bored into her. Accidental, madam, or deliberate? Your search for the will suggests knowledge of its contents. Freedom from a tyrannical husband, control of the estate. Motives deepen. And your past affair with Graves, did Sir Reginald threaten exposure, divorce? She collapsed back into her seat, tears welling. He knew, yes. Confronted me days ago, but I couldn't. Harrington, sensing a shift away from himself, interjected slyly. The decanter, I saw Lady Amelia near it after dinner, fussing with glasses. Arthur gasped. Mother? Poirot raised a hand for silence, his mind weaving the threads. The tea, laced with belladonna to weaken, then cyanide in the brandy to finish. The decanter, accessible, the herb from the greenhouse. But who had knowledge of both poisons? Eliza's botany, Lady Amelia's brewing, even Graves' service. Jap grunted. Nets tightening, Poirot. But evidence? The detective nodded. Oui, but consider the autopsy's finer details. He scanned the report anew. Traces of sugar in the tea. Sir Reginald abhorred sweetness, yet it masked the bitterness. Who knew his tastes intimately? Fingers pointed subtly. Family members, the butler. Eliza protested. I avoided his teas, too bland for my liking. As accusations swirled, Poirot stepped to the window, gazing at the greenhouse shimmering in the morning light. We must search it, pots, tools, residues. Jap agreed, dispatching a constable. But as the group dispersed under guard, a new clue emerged. A torn label from a belladonna vial found crumpled in the parlor wastebasket. Whose handwriting? The net tightened further, suspicions coalescing around the women of the house. Yet Poirot sensed the killer's growing unease, a misstep imminent. As the sun climbed higher, banishing the mists, he murmured to Jap, The revelation brings us closer, mon ami. But the confrontation awaits, the final unmasking. A distant clock chimed, heralding the climax. Chapter 9. The confrontation. The sun had climbed higher in the sky, bathing Blackwood Manor in a deceptive warmth that did little to dispel the chill of suspicion lingering in the parlor. Hercule Poirot, having absorbed the autopsy revelations, now paced the room with theatrical deliberation, his polished shoes clicking against the parquet floor like the ticking of an inexorable clock. The suspects, reassembled under Inspector Jap's watchful eye, sat in a semicircle of antique chairs, their faces a mosaic of anxiety, defiance, and feigned indifference. Lady Amelia twisted her handkerchief into knots. Arthur drummed his fingers on his knee. Eliza Thorne maintained her steely composure. Victor Harrington mopped his brow with a silk pocket square, and Mr. Graves stood rigidly by the sideboard, ever the dutiful servant. Poirot halted abruptly before the fireplace where flames danced mockingly and raised his hands for attention. Mes amis, he declared in his precise, accented tones, the time has come for the confrontation. The killer of Sir Reginald Blackwood is among us in this very room. The cyanide, swift and merciless, was administered in the brandy bundle, but not alone. The belladonna in the tea, a subtle precursor, weakened his defenses, ensuring the poison's fatal embrace. Administered between dinner and midnight, when alibis are as fragile as spun glass. A collective intake of breath filled the room. Jap leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his mustache twitching in anticipation. Poirot continued, his gray cells orchestrating the revelation like a symphony conductor. Let us dismantle the illusions one by one. The diary's full entry on the affair between Lady Amelia and Monsieur Graves. It confirms the liaison ended amicably years ago with no lingering grudge. Sir Reginald noted it with melancholy, not malice. A red herring planted perhaps to stir old wounds, but dismissed. Graves bowed his head slightly, a flicker of relief crossing his marble features. Lady Amelia, however, flushed crimson, her eyes darting to the butler before returning to Poirot. Then, what of it? She whispered. Poirot pivoted gracefully. The mud print in the study, that peculiar clue. From the garden soil near Arthur's bench. But the boots, kept in the communal mudroom, worn by gardeners, guests, even the ladies on rainy days. Multiple impressions overlap. The print was not unique to Monsieur Arthur. Another misdirection designed to implicate the indebted son. Arthur exhaled sharply, slumping back in relief. Thank God. I told you I was out walking, telegram in hand from my creditor, time-stamped at 11:45. I couldn't have returned in time. Précisément, Poirot affirmed. Your debts are real. Your argument with your father heated, but your alibi holds. Like a telegram wire, unbreakable, Eliza interjected, her voice sharp as a stiletto. And my forged letter? I admitted it, to expose Harrington's thievery, not to kill. Poirot nodded benevolently. Oui, mademoiselle. A clever ploy to force investigation born of frustration with your uncle's blindness to embezzlement. Not murder, but mischief. And your glove? Fibers suggest transfer from another's garment, innocent or incidental. Harrington, sensing the tide turning, straightened. See? My ledgers? Yes, I skimmed funds, a desperate measure for my own debts. But Reginald and I could have negotiated, I swear, no poison from my hand. Poirot's eyes twinkled. Admitted embezzlement, monsieur, for which you shall face justice. But murder? Non. Your documents, though forged in parts, place you in your room, ledgers spread, as the maid confirmed. Lady Amelia rose unsteadily, her poise fracturing. Then who, Monsieur Poirot? Who among us? The room fell silent, the only sound the ticking grandfather clock in the hall, marking the seconds like accusations. Poirot paced anew, building to his crescendo. The true motive lies deeper, entwined in the vines of this estate, like the belladonna in the greenhouse. The tea brewed with care, laced with the herb to induce weakness. Dilated pupils, confusion, a prelude to the cyanide symphony. Sir Reginald's habit of mixing tea with brandy, known intimately to the household, but who prepared that fatal infusion? All eyes turned to Lady Amelia, who paled to the hue of porcelain. Graves murmured, My lady, you always brewed the master's teas. Arthur gasped. Mother! No! Poirot pointed dramatically. Lady Amelia Blackwood, it is you. You poisoned the tea with belladonna from the greenhouse, subtle enough to mask as a nerve tonic but lethal in concert with the cyanide you later added to the decanter. Your fingerprints smudged deliberately on the crystal betray your caution. The vial planted in Graves' room? Your doing to frame the man of your past affair. The mud print? Borrowed boots to implicate Arthur. The burned letter? Altered to point to Harrington, and the locket, not your brother as you claimed, but containing a hidden compartment with a poison recipe scribbled in your hand. Lady Amelia collapsed into her chair, sobs racking her frame. How did you know? Poirot's voice softened, though unyielding. The little gray cells, madam. Inconsistencies, your headache alibi, yet you were seen near the decanter. Your search for the hidden will. Knowing it favored Eliza, cutting you out after discovering your renewed indiscretions. No. The locket's photo was Captain Winters, your lover. Not deceased by accident, but perhaps by design years ago. But Sir Reginald uncovered letters, threatened divorce, exposure. A loveless marriage, suffocating control. You sought freedom, the estate's full command. She lifted her head, tears streaming. He was cruel, Monsieur Poirot, tyrannical, belittling me at every turn. The affair with Graves was escape long ago. When Reginald found out, he vowed to ruin me, leave me penniless, scandalized. I couldn't bear it. The belladonna, to make him ill, perhaps. But the cyanide, I snapped, poured it in rage after our final argument. Her confession spilled forth like a dam burst. The opportunity post-dinner, the open window of faint, the red herrings to confuse. Japp stepped forward, handcuffs at the ready. Lady Amelia Blackwood, you're under arrest for the murder of Sir Reginald Blackwood. She rose with dignity, allowing the cuffs, her eyes hollow. It was liberation or damnation. But Poirot held up a hand. One final twist, mes amis. The burned letter in the grate. Not an accusation, but your abandoned suicide note, madam. Betrayal. End it all. You chose murder over self-destruction. She nodded wearily, the fight gone. As Japp led her away, the room exhaled collectively. Arthur buried his face in his hands. Eliza reached out tentatively. Harrington muttered about dodged bullets. And Graves bowed his head in silent grief. Poirot sighed, the weight of resolution settling. Crime, it is a puzzle for the ordered mind. But the human heart, that is the true enigma. Chapter 10. Resolution at dawn. The first rays of dawn pierced the heavy drapes of Blackwood Manor's parlor, casting a golden haze over the assembled group, as if the sun itself sought to banish the shadows of deceit that had cloaked the estate for too long. Lady Amelia Blackwood, her wrists bound by Inspector Japp's unyielding handcuffs, was led away with a quiet dignity that belied the storm of emotions raging within her. Her silk gown whispered against the floorboards as she passed, her head held high, though tears traced silent paths down her cheeks. The constable flanking her offered a steadying hand, but she shrugged it off, pausing at the door to cast one final glance at the room. At Arthur, her son whose face was a mask of disbelief. At Eliza, whose sharp eyes softened with unexpected pity. At Harrington, who averted his gaze in shame. And at Graves, the butler, whose loyal service had been her undoing. As the door clicked shut behind her, a collective sigh escaped the remaining souls, the manor itself seeming to exhale in relief. The fire in the grate popped softly, the only sound breaking the heavy silence. Hercule Poirot, standing sentinel by the mantel, adjusted his pince-nez and twirled his moustache with a flourish, his gray cells basking in the triumph of resolution. Mes amis, he began, his voice a soothing balm amid the turmoil. The puzzle is complete. Allow Poirot to illuminate the path of deduction for clarity's sake. He paced slowly, his compact form casting a long shadow in the morning light, as the group leaned forward, eager for the final unraveling. It began with inconsistencies, those small cracks in the facade of lies, the fingerprints on the decanter, all present but one set, smudged with intent, as if the culprit feared perfection in their crime. Lady Amelia's prints, madame, were those. Your caution betrayed you. Then the vial of cyanide, hidden clumsily in Graves' quarters. Who but you, with intimate knowledge of the servant's wing from your long-ago liaison, could plant it so? Arthur interjected, his voice hoarse with emotion. But mother, why? Father was stern, yes, but murder? Poirot raised a placating hand. Ah, the motive, monsieur. Deeper than mere inheritance. Sir Reginald's discovery of your mother's renewed indiscretions, not with Graves, as the diary suggested in its misleading entry, but echoes of her past with Captain Winters. The locket claimed to hold a brother's manicured portrait. None. A clever compartment concealed a poison recipe scribbled in her hand, procured perhaps from dubious sources in London. Your father threatened exposure, divorce, destitution. A loveless marriage suffocating under his tyranny. She sought liberation, control of the estate unencumbered. Eliza nodded slowly, piecing it together. The belladonna, from my greenhouse. She must have harvested it herself, knowing I'd be blamed for my botany interests. Poirot smiled enigmatically. Précisément, mademoiselle. The tea brewed by her hand, laced with the herb to induce weakness. Dilated pupils, confusion masking as a nerve tonic. Sir Reginald's habit of blending it with brandy provided the perfect vector for the cyanide. Post-dinner, she tampered with the decanter, her headache alibi a feint to retire early, unobserved. Harrington, still under guard, cleared his throat. And the red herrings? The mud print? The forged letter? Poirot chuckled softly. Ah, the artistry of misdirection. The mud, from borrowed boots in the mudroom tracked to implicate Arthur. The burned letter, altered from her own abandoned suicide note, twisted to point at you, monsieur, and your embezzlement. Even Eliza's glove pilfered and placed near the study. Lady Amelia wove a web to ensnare all, diverting from her own guilt. But the little gray cells see through such veils. The ordered mind prevails. Jap, pocketing his notebook, grunted in approval. Spot on, Poirot. We'll have the full confession at the station, but your deductions tie it neatly. Harrington, you're nicked for embezzlement. Ledgers don't lie. As for the rest... He glanced at Arthur and Eliza. The estate's yours now, per the original will. No hidden revisions found. Sir Reginald's threats were bluffs, perhaps. Arthur rose, extending a hand to Eliza. Cousin, we can share it fairly. Pay off my debts, restore the manor, no more secrets. Eliza hesitated, then clasped his hand, a tentative alliance forming in the wake of tragedy. Agreed. Uncle's legacy, better honored in unity. Graves, ever faithful, bowed slightly. If you'll have me, sir, miss, I'd serve on, but retirement calls. 30 years. Enough shadows for one lifetime. Poirot observed the scene with quiet satisfaction, the human drama unfolding as predictably as the dawn. As the group dispersed, Jap escorting Harrington to join Lady Amelia in the waiting police car, Poirot gathered his valise from the hall, where George, his valet, had discreetly prepared it. The grand staircase, once ominous under storm clouds, now gleamed in the sunlight filtering through the windows. Portraits of Blackwood ancestors seemed less judgmental, their eyes softened by the resolution. Stepping onto the gravel drive, Poirot inhaled the crisp morning air, scented with dew-kissed roses from the gardens. The mist that had shrouded the estate lifted like cleared suspicions, revealing the rolling Sussex hills in all their verdant glory. A taxi idled at the gates, summoned by Graves' foresight. As Poirot climbed in, Arthur and Eliza emerged on the steps, waving farewell. Monsieur Poirot, thank you. For everything, Arthur called. Poirot tipped his hat. It is nothing, mes enfants. Crime is but a puzzle for the ordered mind. Remember, truth like the sun always rises. The taxi crunched away, leaving Blackwood Manor behind, a testament to faded grandeur reclaimed. In the quiet of the journey back to London, Poirot reflected on the case. The human heart, with its capacities for love and betrayal, never ceased to intrigue. Lady Amelia's descent from elegance to desperation, Arthur's redemption from vice, Eliza's sharp wit tempered by compassion, even Harrington's greed, a cautionary tale, and Graves, the stoic pillar, retiring to a well-earned peace, perhaps a cottage by the sea with memories as his company. As the countryside blurred past, Poirot's thoughts turned to his apartment on Whitehaven Mansions. Tisane awaiting, order restored. Another mystery solved, the world a fraction more logical. Yet he knew shadows would gather anew, the gray cells ever vigilant,